After a long, tiring day at work, Emma had a habit of soaking in the bathtub, letting her body relax and washing away all the stress. Lately, she had noticed something strange. Her shampoo, body wash, and even toothpaste were running out faster than usual. At first, she thought maybe she had been using them too carelessly, so she tried to be more frugal. However, an uneasy feeling kept growing inside her, even though she couldn't quite explain why. That evening, after taking a bath, Emma wrapped herself in a soft blanket, turned on the TV, and relaxed.
Authorities have issued a high-priority warning regarding the escape of a dangerous criminal with a history of multiple homicides. The fugitive has been at large for several days, and the latest sighting places him in Orange County. Residents.
Oh my God, how dare I go outside?
A chill ran down her spine. She stood up immediately, checked the front door and windows, and locked everything tightly. After making sure there were no gaps, she returned to her bedroom. But just then, a faint sound came from under the bed. She froze. Her throat went dry. Her heart pounded in her chest. Holding her breath, she peered into the dim darkness beneath the bed. A small mouse was quietly nibbling on crumbs. Emma let out a relieved sigh and chuckled at herself for panicking over nothing. But just as she was about to stand up, another sound came from behind her.
Silly girl.
A soft, eerie giggle. Emma's body went rigid. It felt as if invisible hands were tightening around her throat. She didn't want to turn around, but fear compelled her to face the truth.
Who's there?
Slowly, she approached the wardrobe. Her fingers trembled as they reached for the handle. Taking a deep breath, she gathered all her courage and gently pushed the door open.
You sought me.
I never used to believe in ghosts, but that no longer mattered after what I had experienced. Hello, my name is Doris. I am 25 years old, and the story I am about to tell has haunted me ever since. Back then, my mother fell seriously ill and had to be hospitalized. Worried about her, I stayed at the hospital to take care of her. She was placed in an old room at the end of the hallway. The doctors didn't want her to stay there, but the hospital had run out of rooms. I didn't think much of it. After all, every hospital had old rooms, didn't they? But on the very first night I stayed, I began to feel that something was wrong. As I was about to close my eyes, a strange sound came from the bathroom. At first, it was just a light movement, as if someone inside was trying to open the door. But then, it turned faster, stronger, until the door burst open with a loud click. I swallowed hard and stepped forward to check. There was no sign that anyone had just been in there. Shaking my head, I told myself that I was just too tired and imagining things. But just as I turned away, a sob echoed. A faint, mournful sound that sent chills down my spine. It came from the very same bathroom. My heart pounded as I looked back inside. Yet there was no one there. When I glanced at the mirror above the sink, I saw a child. Pale skin, hollow eyes, weeping blood. Suddenly, a chorus of laughter rang out, filling the room as if dozens of children were laughing at once. I stumbled back, my heart racing, and hastily flipped the light switch. The boy and the laughter vanished. At that moment, the door to the room swung open. A pregnant nurse walked in to check my mother's temperature. She was thin, her face pale, and her uniform looked worn as if it had been used for a long time. I glanced at the clock on the wall, feeling strange. Wasn't it too late for rounds? The nurse smiled gently and said,
"Hello, I'm here to check the patient's temperature."
I returned her smile and asked, "I see, but you're still working this late?" She smiled again.
It's our responsibility after all.
As she took my mother's temperature, she told me a story about this room. She said that about 10 years ago, a nurse had secretly aborted her child in that very bathroom. Overcome with guilt, she had jumped out of the window. Her body was found in the parking lot the next morning. Hearing this, I immediately told her about what I had seen earlier in the bathroom. She listened, then smiled and said,
Perhaps the boy was the spirit of the unborn child.
I quickly asked, "How do you know that?" She chuckled and said,
I made it up.
With that, she left the room, leaving me in suffocating silence. Just then, I noticed a drop of blood slowly trailing down her leg. Panicked, I rushed to the door, intending to call her back, but the hallway was empty. Not a soul, not a single sound. I stood frozen, a chill creeping down my spine, making the hairs on my neck stand on end. When I returned to the room, my mother was fast asleep. I lay down on my bed, but no matter how much I tried, I couldn't sleep. The night dragged on, each tiny noise making me jump until I finally saw the first light of dawn. When the doctor came to check on my mother, I told him everything that had happened the night before. He listened, his eyes thoughtful but not surprised. Then he said slowly,
There have been many rumors about this room, but there is no pregnant nurse working at our hospital.
My chest tightened, my mind swirling with confusion. Then who was she? A shiver ran through me. Could she have been the nurse who had aborted her child and jumped from the window? The following days, everything seemed to return to normal until my mother was discharged. As I helped her out of the room, I instinctively turned back, and I saw the nurse standing by the window, holding a baby in her arms. Panicked, I rubbed my eyes, but when I looked again, she was gone, as if she had never been there.
People said that if you worked the night shift at a deserted convenience store, you would occasionally see things you shouldn't see. At first, I thought it was just nonsense made up to scare the faint-hearted. But then, on my very first night at work, strange things began to happen. I was Joss, a first-year architecture student who had just started working at a convenience store. It was past midnight, and I was restocking the shelves when the store phone rang. I picked up the receiver, and a weak female voice whispered,
Help me, please, help me.
Who are you? Where are you? There was no reply, only the sound of heavy rain falling on the other end of the line. Then, the call suddenly ended. I stood still for a moment, feeling that something was off, but convinced myself that it was just a prank.
Open the door.
The voice was soft, but echoed eerily. I looked up through the glass door, and my heart stopped. Under the torrential rain, a girl in a white dress stood motionless. Her soaked hair hung down, covering her face. Water dripped from the hem of her dress, pooling into a dark puddle that seemed almost like blood. When she slowly lifted her head, I dropped the phone in horror. Her face was grotesquely distorted, her jaw shattered, and her empty eye sockets oozed a thick black liquid. Her hands clutched the glass door, scratching against it repeatedly, leaving long, eerie marks. I screamed and bolted away, my breath ragged, as if even a second of hesitation would let that terrifying thing catch me. The next morning, I went to see my boss and told him about the girl from the night before.
I've never seen such a girl, and no other employees have ever mentioned anything like that.
Sir, please let me quit. She was too scary.
It's fine. Just keep working, and I'll give you a raise.
Despite the fear gnawing at me, the pay he offered was twice as high as other places. I desperately needed money, so I had no choice but to grind my teeth and continue working. One night, while I was taking inventory in the storage room, I overheard my boss talking to someone. Peeking through the gap in the door, I saw that it was Drake, an older friend of mine. I keep dreaming about her every night. I can't take it anymore.
Shut up. If anyone finds out about this, I won't let you off.
What was the connection between Drake and my boss? Why was he so scared? 1,000 questions swirled in my mind. Suddenly, the pen in my hand slipped and hit the floor, making a small noise that made both of them turn toward the storage room. Caught off guard, I stepped out, awkwardly smiling at them. The moment Drake saw me, he froze for a second before hurriedly leaving as if avoiding something. Confused, I called out to him, but before I could take a step, my boss blocked my way.
Just focus on your work.
Left with no choice, I reluctantly returned to my tasks, but my mind kept replaying that conversation. The next day, I went to school and found Drake, telling him about the ghostly girl I had seen. His face turned pale with fear, but no matter how much I pressed him, he refused to speak. Seeing his reluctance, I pulled out a necklace with a D pendant, Drake's usual accessory that I had found at the convenience store. Finally, under my insistence, he revealed the horrifying truth. 3 years ago, Drake had worked at the same convenience store I was working at now. That fateful night during a heavy storm, he heard a loud crash. Rushing outside, he saw his boss had hit a girl with his car. She was still breathing. Drake was about to help her when, to his shock, his boss reversed the car and then accelerated, running her over again. The girl died instantly. Her face was almost completely crushed, yet her eyes remained wide open, staring into Drake's soul. Drake stood frozen in horror, unable to believe what had just happened. Reeking of alcohol, his boss stepped out of the car and walked toward him.
You didn't see anything, understand?
You killed someone. I have to call the police.
If you say a single word, you'll be the next one lying there.
Then he stuffed the girl's body into a large sack, threw it into the trunk, and drove away. Drake stood frozen in the rain, watching the car disappear into the night. For the past 3 months, I've been dreaming of her cries for help. Her face is terrifying. Then where did he take her body? I don't know. I quit my job right after that and never went back. We have to report this to the police. We can't let this go on. No, Joss, he'll kill us. Don't worry, he can't hurt us. Trust me. Without hesitation, I dragged Drake to the police station to report everything. After listening to our statement, the police showed us a photo. Drake immediately recognized it as the girl from that fateful night. It turned out that just a few days ago, a sanitation worker had discovered her remains buried in a landfill. The police launched an immediate investigation and soon arrested my boss.
Have you ever left a bad review for an order? I never thought that a bad online review could drag me into hell. Hello, my name is Emily, 25 years old, a horror fiction writer for a renowned publishing company. I had written countless terrifying stories, but I never imagined that one day I would become the character in a real-life horror tale. It all started last month when I ordered dinner from a small, newly opened restaurant near my apartment building. Starving, I eagerly opened the food container, but the moment I did, a foul, nauseating smell hit me, making me rush to the bathroom to vomit. Even more horrifying, inside the container was something that looked like a decomposing human finger. Terrified, I immediately threw the food into the trash and left a 1-star review for the restaurant. I had no idea that this was just the beginning of a nightmare. Shortly after, I received a message from the restaurant owner. I can refund your money, Kyle, but it will cost you your life in exchange. I shivered at the words on my screen. Was this some sick joke or a real threat? My building had no security, So if the restaurant owner really wanted revenge, he could come straight to my apartment. After thinking carefully, I decided to stay overnight in the room of Helen, my colleague who lived upstairs, to avoid trouble. I had a camera installed outside my door so I could monitor my apartment through my phone. Looking at the screen, I saw a tall man wearing black sportswear and a baseball cap standing in front of my door. I wanted to tell Helen, but she was too focused on texting someone, seemingly unaware of my distress. Suddenly, the man looked directly at the camera, mumbling something under his breath. A large, deep scar ran down his cheek, making him look terrifying. He licked his lips, smirked with satisfaction, and then made a throat-slitting gesture before turning away. I trembled as I stared at my phone screen. What was he planning? I turned to Helen and realized she had been staring at me the whole time. Her gaze gave me an eerie feeling, as if something sinister was about to happen. I forced a smile and asked, "Helen, is something wrong? Why are you looking at me like that?" Helen smiled slightly and said,
"Oh, it's nothing."
I nervously reached for my glass of water but accidentally spilled it on a notebook on the table. Hurriedly, I picked up the notebook to dry it, but a photo slipped out and fell to the floor. When I bent down to pick it up, my heart nearly stopped. In the picture was Helen smiling brightly next to the very same man who had stood outside my door. A horrifying realization struck me. Helen was the one who had recommended this restaurant to me. At that moment, there was a knock on the door. Helen glanced at me before standing up to answer it. Sensing that something was wrong, I quickly opened Facebook and secretly started a live stream before hiding my phone. Helen soon returned, followed by the man from earlier. I placed my phone on the table and looked at them in fear. "Helen, who is this?" Helen smiled slightly and said,
"This is my boyfriend, the owner of the restaurant you rated 1 star.
I stammered. "What do you mean? Did you plan all of this?" Helen burst into laughter and said,
That's right. I hate your fake perfection. You took everything that should have been mine."
Then she suddenly slapped me hard across the face. A burning pain spread across my cheek, making my head spin. Helen pointed at me in anger and shouted,
"I was supposed to be the best writer. How dare a newcomer like you surpass me?"
Before I could react, Helen grabbed my collar and repeatedly struck me in the face. Each blow landed heavily, making my head spin as my vision gradually blurred from the throbbing pain. I struggled to stand and asked, "If you hate me so much, why did you let me stay here?" Helen laughed hysterically and said,
"Because I wanted to see you suffer, to watch you beg for mercy right in front of me."
Enraged, I shouted, "Keep dreaming! You're just a failure! Don't blame others for your incompetence!" The restaurant owner suddenly lunged forward and punched me hard in the stomach, sending me crashing onto the floor. Before I could recover, he pulled out a knife and slashed a deep cut across my shoulder. I screamed in pain, clutching my wound as warm blood soaked through my thin shirt. Helen stood over me laughing.
"Emily, beg me, and I'll let you die painlessly."
Through gritted teeth, I spat back, "I will never beg a loser like you." Furious, Helen snatched the knife from her boyfriend's hand and lunged at me. Just as I thought it was the end for me, a loud, urgent knocking sounded at the door. Helen froze, turning her face toward the door, silently observing the commotion outside. Sensing my chance, I immediately sprang up, kicked Helen away, and sprinted toward the door. Standing outside was Lucy, my close colleague from work, her face filled with panic. Lucy quickly caught me and asked worriedly,
"Emily, are you okay?"
I gasped, "Help me! Helen wants to kill me!" Before I could explain further, Helen shouted angrily,
"Don't think you can escape from here."
She gripped the knife tightly and charged at us, her bloodshot eyes filled with madness. Lucy and I froze in fear as Helen's twisted expression made her look like a completely different person. Suddenly, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed behind us. Police officers had arrived. It turned out that when Lucy saw my live stream, she immediately called the police and rushed to my place. Helen and the restaurant owner were swiftly restrained and taken away before they could fight back. I let out a sigh of relief, but as the adrenaline faded, pain overwhelmed my body. Exhausted, I lost consciousness and sank into darkness. When I woke up, I found myself in the hospital, my wounds carefully bandaged. This nightmare was finally over, but the scars it left behind would haunt me forever.